So North Carolina's very first fall camp under Bill Belichick just got started today. And as I was uploading a video about all this, I happened to see AJ of Tar Heel 247 post a video. And it is a full 17-minute press conference given by Bill Belichick talking about the start of fall camp and practice. I did not know that this was going to be happening, and I haven't listened to it yet. So I figured, why not? Let's go listen to this entire thing and let's talk about it. Let's kind of react to this entire thing. I'm excited to see what he's got to say. It looks like he gave, 17 minutes is pretty daggum long for Bill Belichick. So I'll be curious to know what he said and the questions in there. So I want to take a look at this video now and let's see what he had to say.
Yeah, excited to get started. These guys have worked really hard, the staff and the players. In terms of the off-season program, their conditioning and all that. So we're excited to get out on the field. We've got a couple of days here of acclimation, so it'll be not our full training camp practices yet, but it's just part of the process and give everybody a good opportunity to get acclimated both on the field and with their teammates, communication, adjustments, things like that. We have a lot of new players. 40 from the spring and 70 from 70 guys that were on last year's team. So, it's a lot of new people to get, up to speed again in terms of, communication, just kind of the way we practice, techniques, things like that. But coaches have done a good job of, closing that gap. And so, we're excited to get out on the field and see it start coming together. So that process, as I said, will start today and we'll build through the acclimation period and then really, get rolling into it next week. But
also something I think is kind of cool, seeing some pictures from AJ earlier, is that they actually have security all around the practice fields right now to try and keep everything some limited access. I don't know what all that's for, but I think that's pretty wild that they got some security out there trying to keep an eye on some people.
I think these steps are, the ones that obviously we need to take and that are required. And so we'll make compliance with them.
We'll start right here in the center. Andrew Jones.
Well, before AJ asks the first question, I thought honestly he talked longer than this. It looks like he just kind of talked for a few minutes and then got straight into questions. So that's gonna be a long amount of questions to make 17 minutes worth. But he really didn't say much to right there. 70 brand new players. That is a lot for North Carolina to be able to get acclimated to the system. We're going to be talking about it a lot this week about how Carolina and Bill Belichick has now got to start doing exactly what they said they were going to do, and that's changing the culture. They got a head start on it spring, but they did bring in some new players and lost a couple of guys as well after spring practice in that small little transfer portal window. So curious to see what Bill Belichick does with that. And let's see what AJ's got to say here.
Tar Heel 24/7. Among the new things that you've had to deal with this year, now you have a training camp in which you won't be able to see your team against somebody else. That's obviously different for you. Is there something you can do to approach it that way, where you can learn as much as you can without having that benefit of seeing them against somebody else? Because the first game is the first live action set, essentially.
That's a really good question, and I accidentally said something over AJ, but what he's asking is, this is the first time that Bill is going to have a team that he's not going to be able to see in quote-unquote like a preseason game. So the first live action is really going to be the first live action, which is kind of crazy in college football. I see why they do it, but I think it'd be kind of cool to play a couple of maybe FCS teams or something like that, or somebody that doesn't get a whole lot of shine or something like that, kind of help them out a little bit. But yeah, great question, AJ. Holy crap.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I've talked to a lot of college coaches about that, and I think there's a little bit more of a, especially for us, a little bit more of an unknown, because even the guys that were here, they weren't here with us, and how exactly they'll react in game situations and under pressure. How quickly, easily we'll be able to adjust or not adjust and all that. We're gonna have to, find out that on the run. But, it's the same for every other team. So, we'll work against ourselves to a point, and then at some point we'll start doing some of the things that we'll see from our opponents. Starting with TCU, and that's what we do is a little bit different than what some other teams do, but we need to work on what we need to work on, and then we'll transition into a game week.
I'm curious to know what that is.
Do you get excited anymore? And are you excited right now?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we spent a lot of time, Mike and I spent a lot of time along with the scouts and the coaches of putting the team together, team building. That started with the wrap up of the 25 recruiting class, then the early portal in January, then a couple of late 25 add-ons who have come, and then obviously the spring portal. And we're still, transitioning through one or two guys here, at the end of the roster. So to see all those guys come together, to see the players who are here train hard and make significant improvements in their strength, explosion, and speed. And then what work we have been able to do collectively is been very encouraging. These guys have bought in, they're working hard. It's exciting to see what they're going to be able to do on the field. So, yeah, very much looking forward to it.
And honestly, being around these players at ACC kickoff, you could really tell these guys are bought in. At least for the guys that were there, Will, Ship, Gio, and Fad, all four of those guys seemed really excited for what was getting ready to happen. And I'm really hoping that's permeated throughout the entire team.
Right behind him, Aaron.
Aaron Beard could be eight. Your presence has brought a lot of attention to this program. Everything you're doing is getting magnified, and attention-wise nationally.
Really?
Imagine that. But for the players, it's a different challenge for the players where the spotlight may be on them more than it's ever been before, partly because of you being on the sideline. How do you?
That's an understatement.
Manage that with a group of guys that are young and say, keep it from being something that's suffocating, where any screw up could be magnified just because of your presence here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, regardless of, and I appreciate where you're coming from on that, but honestly, for all of us, it's control what we can control. Whoever's here or isn't here, that's out of our control. We have a job to do. We have a lot of work to accomplish, and we need to come together and build our team, both on and off the field, our chemistry, our communication, and of course our execution on the field. So that's our biggest challenge, and what's external is external, and honestly, a lot of it's just noise. It doesn't, we've seen all the preseason rankings and this and that and all, and it's great, but that isn't going to affect us. We're going to compete on Saturdays and Mondays or whatever day it is, and that'll determine what happens, not some predictions or projections or anything else. So we'll just kind of ignore that and move on.
On the right, Brian.
Brian Murphy, WRL. How did you handle the back end of the roster as far as the designated student athletes? How many scholarships you gave out? Did you get to the 105 or above that? And then secondly, what have you seen out of Max Johnson and just the way he's attacked sort of the recovery from that gruesome leg injury?
Yeah. Well, we'll start with Max first. Max has done a great job, worked really hard. He's made a tremendous amount of progress throughout the process, but really it's that last, call it 20% between not being able to play and really being ready to play, ready to start training camp, which is where he is now. So he's going to start out there, but he didn't take any meaningful snaps in the spring. He worked out on his own. He threw some routes, but he wasn't involved in any team drills. So
quarterback battle.
It's a big jump for him in terms of what he's able to do. Although I think the progression is very gradual. It's 1% at a time, 1% at a time. But at some point, he's crossed that threshold, and so he'll be ready to participate out there with all the other players. Sorry, my memory.
Just the back end of the roster.
Oh yeah. So yes. So that's a great question. It's still a little bit of a work in progress. Our scholarships will be under 105. We do have the grandfather clause or rule in where the players that were walk-ons last year get grandfathered in. And so us, probably like most every other college team, will be actually over the 105 with those grandfathered players on. We have some players who are not on scholarship who would be under the 105. And obviously most of them will be on scholarship, but there are some guys that are kind of in that gray area. Maybe they can earn a scholarship depending on what their role is and so forth. So from a numbers standpoint, we're in good shape. Like we're not going to have to release players to get to the 105. We already kind of did that in the spring, which was a difficult decision to make. But I think most of those players ended up at other schools, and will be playing this fall. So I do think it kind of worked out for them, and that they're in a situation where they'll have a chance to play. But we're not really going to be restricted on the roster size this year. I think it'll probably be something we'll have to work on next year. But for this year, we're actually under it.
Okay. Hold on a second. So he's talking about that first off, they had over 105 players, and they released some players in the spring. I'm curious to know exactly who left in the spring, because there's two guys that left in the spring. Obviously, they didn't get released, that being Bo Atkinson and Amari Campbell. But I wonder who. I'd have to look back at that. That's something that we needed to go do. We needed to go look back at who all left in the spring and maybe kind of figure out who that was. Did Zach Rice leave in the spring, or did he leave in the fall? I can't remember exactly. There's been so many brand new players, but that is an interesting comment that we are definitely going to have to take a further look at for sure.
Thanks. Yeah. Love those bottom of the roster questions. I mean, a lot of people let that stuff go, but honestly, those are important decisions. Some of those players eventually are going to end up helping us. I mean, I just know that's the way it's going to work out. So, to me, those players are just as, I don't know if they're just as important as the top 10, but they're going to be factors on our team and have roles. So
That's true.
We're constantly trying to make sure we, from top to bottom, do the best we can. Sorry. Yep.
Last row on the left. Yep.
Adam Smith in South Carolina. Hey, Bill. Just wanted to ask you about Freddie Kitchens and him running the offense, installing the offense, and just what that sort of process looks like. You're known as a guy more for like defensive side of the ball things in your career. Like, just what does that look like with him? Putting together this offense. How much input have you had on what you guys want to run offensively, and just sort of that collaboration?
Right. Well, look, I would just say throughout my career, certainly as defensive coordinator, that's definitely been my role. But as a head coach, I've always tried to be involved in every aspect of the game, whether that's offense, defense, special teams, our strength program, our conditioning program, our off the field education of players, and so forth. I think it's important for me to, be a part of all the things that we do, and to add emphasis to the players and the coaches or whoever's responsible for those areas. So, whether it's with Mike on special teams or Freddie or Steve, they have a lot of responsibility for the areas that they have. There's no question about that. But, from a team standpoint, I want to collectively put together the best plan and the best role for our players, which sometimes they overlap a little bit. And so in order to do that, I kind of have to, be a part of all of it. But in terms of Freddie, Freddie's very aggressive coach. Wants to have a physical team, physical running game, physical presence on offense. We just don't want to run backwards on every play. Like, we want to be aggressive, and we have we think we have the players to run that type of offense. I'm sure we're gonna have to modify it a little bit. We have good depth at quarterback, and so we'll see how it all plays out. But Freddie has a lot of experience, spent a lot of time in the NFL, he spent a lot of time in college football. And it's been honestly very helpful for him, for me, the fact that he was here the last couple of years. So, he has a lot of experience and perspective on some of the things that were done, well, that we can build on, maybe some things that we're changing, how that change might affect, just a relative to what's happened in the past. So he's been a great help, and I won't say addition because he was here. We're actually the addition, but for me, he's a great addition to my staff.
Yeah, Freddie Kitchens being here and being the offensive coordinator, something I'm very curious to see how it's going to end up. At first, I did not like the hire, and honestly, I still have some questions on it. Just kind of seeing how the bowl game went. I think Lonnie Galloway called that game. And obviously, you lose Jacoby Criswell and you bring Michael Merdinger in there that hadn't taken any meaningful snaps, and you just portal and everything else. You go with Caleb Hood, who had played some quarterback, and it was just a bad day in Boston. But couple of things he said in there, like we got good depth at quarterback. So That's the first time we've heard of him say something like that about the quarterback room. So I'd be curious to see what that. And also, speaking on special teams, that is another question because Carolina special teams has been horrible over the last few years. So can he get that righted? So, yeah, Freddie Kitchens, that offensive coordinator. I don't know if I trust it yet. I'm a little on the. I need to see what's going to happen here, but Freddie was a great addition to the tight end room over the last couple of seasons, helping out some of our tight ends, and that was one of our strongest rooms. So I'm excited for Freddie, but I'm also very questionative, I guess you could say. I'm curious.
Second row on the left.
Yeah, Jeremiah Holloway with Inside Carolina. Bill, you of course talked about Max a second ago, and just alluded to the depth of quarterback. Those new guys in there. Do you and the staff have a target date of who you want to name the starter, like week before the game, day before the game? Like, you guys have a date which you want to name the starter?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. We don't have a specific date. I think the time will be when we're sure. In my experience as a coach has been, at that position where you're, you want to define who that is, and what you generally don't want to do is pick player A and then end up going to player B, let them compete, and then once you're sure it's player B, make it player B or player A, whoever it goes. So I think once we're confident that we know who has earned that spot, because that's what it'll be. It's not us picking them; it'll be that player earning it. Then we'll decide on that. If it's clear cut, then that player will be the player. If it's not clear cut, maybe the competition will continue into the early part of the season. And I've done that before more at other positions than quarterback, but it could also be a quarterback where we'll see how it goes in the early part of the season. And if the performance, again, whoever earns it is going to be who gets it. That's the bottom line. Nobody's entitled to it. Nobody's been given anything. The player who plays the best and earns that playing time will get it. And I don't know who that's going to be. That'll be up to them. But it would certainly be good to have that done before the first game, and maybe even 2 weeks before the first game. The sooner the better. But it's better to make the right decision than a quick decision. So that's.
Which is fairly much basically the answer that he gave me when I asked him that question about who's going to be the starter for Carolina at quarterback. He kind of said like, hey, guys, Bryce or Gio and Max haven't taken any snaps for us in the spring. They weren't here. Max was hurt. Gio hadn't been here yet. All this, that, and the other thing. And we don't know. So he expounded upon it a little bit more now that we're in fall camp, which I like. But I'm as a matter of fact, and as he was talking, I literally saw on my Twitter feed here pictures and videos of Gio and Bryce Baker throwing side by side. I don't know what that lineup was. I don't know if that means anything, but this quarterback situation is going to be very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing exactly how this thing ends up. I believe this is Gio's to lose, and I'm going to stick with that, but I guess you could never say never.
We'll try to do, but that's one of the key questions we have to answer.
We have time for a couple more. Back center.
Ron Hackett, Fayetteville Observer. Bill, with so many unknowns and new players, what does the preseason checklist, so to speak, look like as far as progression throughout these next few weeks, the tackling plan and all that stuff?
Yeah, the biggest thing is evaluate the team. That's what we have to do, evaluate the team. We sort of have an idea of what the players who are here that were here in the spring can do. But again, I'd say a lot of those players have shown significant improvement, particularly in their strength conditioning, their explosion, their speed, and their techniques that they've been working on from the spring coaching. And so we'll see what that looks like. But then evaluate the other players, the many new faces that we have here, and see what kind of role they can carve out for themselves, and how we can utilize them once we have a better understanding of their skills. I mean, we can see them. Whether it was transfer players or in some cases freshmen that are coming in, we have an idea what their skills are and think, hey, maybe this player can do certain things, and this player can do certain things, but until they actually get out on the field and prove it and earn it, we'll give them a chance, but they'll have to earn that over somebody else who is probably vying for the same role. So big thing for us in the next, I'd say 10 days is to evaluate the team and then start to fine tune it from there.
Right, front row.
Grant Sasha, tarheels on my side. Your resume speaks for itself when it comes to evaluating talents at the highest levels, but when you're assessing high school athletes, players who are developing physically, mentally, fundamentally, what makes that process more challenging? Evaluating college and college transfers and high school athletes, but also are there any specific indicators that you look for when it comes to evaluating?
Yeah, you've pretty much hit all the issues right there. The high school evaluations are harder because there's more of a discrepancy between the players that we're evaluating, Power 4 type players versus honestly other players who aren't even going to play college football. High school is probably the end of their football career, and then in between. So it's hard to see. Sometimes it's hard to see what the level of competition is. Of course, you can see a kid in person, which we had approximately 4,000 kids on campus in our 7-on-7 camps and in our individual camps. That's helpful, or to go see the player actually practice at his high school, or games in the fall, which we didn't do last year, but we could do some of that this year. So those things are helpful, but the best evaluations when they actually get on the field and do our stuff against our players. The college out evaluation, I'd say, is a little bit easier, similar to the NFL free agency, where you can see guys playing at a competition level that's more similar to ours. In some cases, there are guys that are going to play up, but in other cases, not. We have a couple of guys from Penn State and Florida, places like that. So that's pretty good competition right there. But we have some other players that have transferred in from, let's say, lower levels. So that's a little bit more challenging, but again, it is what it is, and we have the same opportunity everybody else does. So we're watching the same high school film that every other school is watching. We're watching the same college transfer film that everybody else is watching, and really it's up to us to make the right evaluation for us and how the player fits for us, how he fits for another team, and their system could be two different things we have to do. We feel like is best for the development of our team, and that's just not his on the field play, but also the other components that he brings, his work ethic, his leadership, his toughness, and so forth. So it's challenging. I say the biggest challenge of all that is just the volume. We're talking about like several thousand high school players. You weren't looking at several thousand players in the draft. And then you have portal players, which is another couple thousand. And you weren't looking at a couple thousand free agents in the NFL. It was whatever the number was, it usually boiled down to, somewhere in the double digits. So the volume of players is a lot greater than what it was in the NFL.
Last one, Brian.
That was a great question. To ask him about his recruiting, because that's the thing. A lot of people are wondering. I've been wondering, like, how is he going to do? Like, obviously, we can understand how he did in the NFL, but the NFL is a lot different than college, because in college, you got to go with high school players. North Carolina has a recent memory of a couple of 5 stars that you thought were, look like they're going to be the next best thing, and couple of them, or one of them, but for sure, never even saw second in the depth chart because he just didn't have it. And the talent, you go back and look at the talent that he was facing, it really wasn't all that great. And other guys just don't pan out. So to see him actually talk about, like, hey, it is kind of difficult to do this. I like hearing him being very open about that. I didn't realize that he had, over 4,000 players or kids, at camps and stuff like that. That's crazy. But cycling through that volume, can he really do the same things he did in the NFL at the collegiate level? That's gonna be the question. And unfortunately, that's a question that we aren't going to find out for probably a couple of years now.
Kind of piggybacking off that, you added Gio Lopez and Andrew Simpson in that spring portal window. Were you looking to fill specific holes in the spring portal window? How did you evaluate those guys versus what you already had on your roster? And was it different than maybe the first portal window where you try to fill a team?
Yeah. No, I think you hit it right. I think the first portal was we're just trying to find guys to fill the team. The second portal, we're looking for good football players. And, we felt like any position, if the player wanted to come in and compete and we thought it was a good player, then this is the right spot for him. And we'll give everybody an opportunity to compete. Through the course of my career, we've had many free agents, low round draft choices who not only competed and earned playing time, but some became some of our best players. So players that want to come in and compete and have shown enough skill, we'll take those guys, and we've taken plenty of them. We'll see how they do, but those are kind of the two things we're looking for. Anybody who's walking in here feeling like, well, I'm going to be starting this or that, I'm entitled to this, and I mean that's not really the way it's going to work. They're going to have to earn it.
I like
they
that.
want to come in and earn playing time and earn a roster spot, and and play at Carolina and play in the ACC, and get that kind of profile. Then we'll give it to them, and we'll see what they can do. Whatever they get, they're going to earn. We're not handing out anything. Just like nobody's handing out wins in this conference. You're going to have to go earn them. We're going to have to earn our spots on the field.
Okay, so that right there was a pretty good. I liked what I heard there. I like the questions that was asked. And there was some really good questions that were asked throughout that, and try to give a little bit of commentary throughout that thing. But for Bill and this team, it is definitely about, hey, let's really start to figure out who we are now, because we had our spring practice, but a lot of things have changed since that spring practice. You've added a couple of guys like Gio and Andrew Simpson, like was mentioned right there in that last question. But now it's all about putting this team together and getting them ready and fine-tuned and evaluated and get that depth chart started to figure out, because the depth charts for the entire team are up on the line now. It's not like it's been over the last few years where you kind of knew, okay, at the linebacker position, we understand what's going to be going on there. The running back position, we understand what's going to be going on with receivers, things of that nature. You have some front runners in every position group. But there are some, like the offensive line and the defensive line, that are like, who's going to know? Linebacker room as well. So I'd be very curious to see how Carolina and Bill and this entire coaching staff start to fine-tune this team and evaluate, and how these depth charts are starting to work out. But I'm excited to see what Bill's going to do. And the biggest thing that I took away, and I wrote it down right here, is Carolina. And Bill hit on this thing. He said it early in the press conference, and he said it right here at the end, that, talk about position groups, but also them as a team. Wins aren't going to be handed out. Positions aren't going to be handed out. Everything that we get, we're going to have to earn. And North Carolina has done one thing very poorly for a while now, and that is handle the spotlight. They cannot. North Carolina's had issues with handling the spotlight. 9-1 turns into 9-5. 6, and just talking recent memory here. 6-0 turns into 8-5. It's not a good day for Carolina when the spotlight is on them, and we even saw this in games that they were favored by double digits by, losing those games and everything else. Carolina has done a bad job of handling the spotlight, and no matter what they earn or no matter what they get this year, they're going to have earned whatever that is. And I'm on the optimistic side, where I think Carolina should go out there with the change of culture that I believe would be taking place and that I expect to take place. Carolina's going to have their hands full, but I think that they should go out there and go win a good number of ball games this year. Going to be a couple of toss-ups in there, some trick games, or some trap games, I guess you could say. But I'm excited to see what Carolina does moving forward. And this being the first press conference, I'm curious to see how these press conferences continue. If they do, we'll see. But a lot of cool things coming out of Chapel Hill today. And make sure and keep it locked to the Hill Brothers as we continue to talk about fall camp and the storylines coming out of it, and the storylines that right now are going into it, the questions that we all have as fans of, what's the D-line room going to look like? What's that depth chart going to be? Special teams and quarterback and all this other stuff that we was talking about. It was kind of hinted on throughout this presser here. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below about Bill Belichick's presser. I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought he expounded upon a few things. And I'm curious to see exactly from here how his tune changes and what he says throughout these next couple of press conferences, if he ends up doing them. And there's a possibility he can only do like one, maybe two. I think last year we only got 1 or 2 out of Mac. And we know Mac's PR crazy. So we'll see. But I'm excited. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. And as always, go Heels.